I was talking about the 3 generations of addiction. It was first my mother, and then my grandmother started taking Xanax and the Vicodin to kind of numb some medical stuff, but also because my mother was just putting her through complete nightmares. So my grandma was addicted at that point to prescription medication. And then unfortunately, my sister, rest in peace, my oldest sister, died at 35. Her body just ended up giving up through just years and years of drug addiction.
Well, Isabel Alysa, I am so happy to have you here in studio. Hope to Hustle. I know that it's you are busy, and so I really appreciate you coming out here.
I'm so happy
today.
to be here.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it's just a quick 45-minute flight. Not too bad.
No, but obviously I'd been wanting to come, and I've obviously known you for, I would say at least 5 years now. I can't remember the last time we connected, and, we've been able to both see each other's journey. And I think, thank you for creating such an amazing platform. I think you and I connect on so many different levels, and I'm just so happy to be here with you today. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. And that's what I'm really excited is I've watched your journey and just your motivation and drive and your hustle to just be where you are today, and being a mom and a wife and a business owner and a founder and just constantly creating. I mean, that is just so motivating to me and inspiring to me.
Thank you.
And I just want to acknowledge you for that. I'm sure people tell you, but sometimes just hearing I'm proud of you and knowing a little bit about your story and your childhood and your upbringing, that really hits home to me personally, which I am excited to kind of dive into that and share with others what you've gone through. And that helps so many people,
Yeah, I think that, you just really said it. Obviously being a CEO, woman in business alone is difficult, right? And then to be a wife, a mother of a beautiful 9-year-old daughter. But you look at me and you're like, oh my gosh, I get judged all the time, right? They're like, blonde hair, blue eyes, she must have had daddy to write her a check to start her business. They don't know the backstory. And no, obviously nothing against anybody who has those opportunities, which is amazing. For me, it was just a little different. And so I love these platforms because I'm able to share the why and the how. But it has not been easy, just me starting off. I was put into foster care at the age of 7. And a lot of people might not know that, but my biological mother had 5 daughters. And we're all adopted in different areas, or we're put in foster care, just other than my twin sister and I. And but I never really have spoken about why I was put into foster care. And I think, with you having the platform and just you having your facilities to help people with addiction. So I actually come from a family 3 generations of addiction.
Oh, wow.
And so, my mother and my father were actually drug addicts. And I believe there was also some prostitution that was done. And so, my mother just kept having kids and kids and kids. And my sister and I were that right in the middle. So we weren't the youngest, we weren't the oldest. And we went through such traumatic things there. When you're obviously addicted to drugs, my mom, her drug of choice was PCP and Xanax. And, there would be days where she would disappear, our parents would disappear, and we're 5-year-old little girls with nothing to eat. And we'd go out we'd go in the backyard and there's a bag of dog food, and we would eat dog food. Or we'd go in the fridge and there's old meat, and we would eat old meat. We didn't know how to cook. We didn't even know how to turn on the stove, So can you imagine these little girls left home by themselves, and when your mom's high as a kite? And so, and then we just obviously went through tons of trauma there, other than not just the eating, not having food or being left alone, but there was a lot of trauma. There would be people in and out of our house that would beat the crap out of my mother because God knows what reasons were behind that at the time. My biological father was in a very famous rock band, and so he was always busy with that, and it was heavy metal. And I just think there's in the 1990s lots of drugs and stuff. So pretty much we went through that. And I remember going to school not having socks on my feet. I didn't have underwears. Like, I just remember certain things like that, very graphic stuff. And it's funny that you think kids won't remember, but I remember everything, I think, from the age of 4 on. And then at the age of 7, I actually almost died of a bleeding ulcer. That was because I was so malnourished. I was, I think, by over 40% below what a healthy weight is for a child my age. And so I remember going to the bathroom and wiping myself and seeing blood. And then I got this really bad cramp in my stomach, and I pretty much could not stop going to the bathroom, which was all blood. At that point, obviously, I was immediately rushed to the hospital, and I was obviously completely malnourished, eating just like the dog food and, you know, the raw meat and whatever we could. And there would be days where there wasn't even that. So we were just starving. And so I think at that point, that's when a case was opened, and there had, from what I hear now, even our own family members that were calling DCFS to say, like, these girls, you know, shouldn't be here. And so at the age of 7, we were put into foster care. And, you know, I remember I'll never forget the day the social workers came to my school and said, you know, we're taking you away from your mother. So it wasn't even like at the house. So it was very traumatic. I remember hitting and kicking the social workers. They had to carry me to the car, and I was kicking them because, like, it doesn't matter whether my mom was an addict or not. Like, it's still mom, and that's all I knew. And you love your mother regardless. So I remember that, and we got put into a foster home, and things were good there for a little while. And then, unfortunately, that family also failed us, and we went through tons and tons of, unfortunately, different types of abuse there. And you know, and I remember there's points in my life where I was like, you know, I didn't question God, but I also didn't understand why we had 2 sets of parents that had kind of failed us. And unfortunately, DCFS also failed us. There was a lot of reports that were made and saying, you know, these girls are not being taken care of the way they should. And DCFS just ignored. And it wasn't until pretty much the age of 17 where my sister left before me. And then I left quickly right after that and left my foster home with a backpack. Didn't know where my next meal was going to come from, working the dead end jobs. And, you know, I think about how, you know, I talk about just like perseverance and pushing through. Like, I didn't know where I was going to live. I started renting a room in a stranger's house for $300 while working 3 jobs. But there was always this like force of faith. Like, I was so terrified of becoming addicted to drugs or becoming an alcoholic. And it's so funny because I'll be 35 this year, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I actually had like an official first like hangover because I've been terrified. Yeah. Of obviously addiction. And so I was talking about the 3 generations of addiction. It was first my mother, and then my grandmother started taking Xanax and the Vicodin to kind of numb some medical stuff, but also because my mother was just putting her through complete nightmares. So my grandma was addicted at that point to prescription medication. And then unfortunately, my sister, rest in peace, my oldest sister, died at 35. Her body just ended up giving up through just years and years of drug addiction. So as you can see, now we can dive obviously into, you know, my story a little bit more and how my life is evolved, and how God, I think, has been, I know he's been that driving force to keep me pushing through, because there was those moments where I didn't think I was going to make it out alive.
Right. That's a lot, you know, that's heavy. And so a couple questions that I have, you know, your twin sister, are you guys, was it paternal?
Yeah. So we're not identical. We're fraternal twins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paternal twins. Yep. Got it. And how do you feel? Do you feel like you guys handled it similar? Like, did you grasp onto each other, or did you guys handle it very differently?
I mean, she definitely is like my best friend. She drives me crazy. Absolutely love her. But I do think obviously God blessed me with the twin to pull through those. Like, I can't imagine going through what we went through without having one another. And so just to speak like on myself, we have completely different personalities. And I've always been the one she's very creative. And I think she's handled things very different than I have, in the sense where she's like, we both had obviously so many, the way we processed the pain is different. We're not the same people, but I think we've done a hell of a good job to, to get through, to be where we're at today. So just, I do think that I couldn't have made it through life and that without having a twin sister. So I do. And that's another thing that I think God knew that I needed, because I don't know if we would have made it out alive without each other.
Yeah. And through the process, did you have a relationship with your other siblings, or were you guys pretty isolated from them?
We had like our adoption. They actually ended up adopting us. Our adoption was like a no contact adoption, but my adopted mom would send pictures to like my biological aunt, who is my mother's sister. And she was actually the complete opposite of my mother. Like my aunt, like was a USC graduate, taught there for 10 years, and she suffered a lot because she's had to see her own sister become an addict and have 5 kids from different dads. So she suffered a lot. And so the trauma in our family has just been so much. But going back to that, I think, so we're talking, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But what was your question again?
If you were isolated from your siblings.
Okay, yeah. So we were. So I only had known my oldest sister, which was the one who unfortunately passed away. And then my other older sister, I had never met her because she was obviously born before us. And so, but I had heard of her through our family. And then it was us. And then I had heard when we were obviously then put into foster care, my mother had another child that was younger than us. So pretty much the only sister was my oldest sister. But we had no contact with them for 10 years.
That's so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, and growing up, I was raised with, different family dynamic and not around my siblings, and I didn't meet them until we were older. But that's hard. It's hard to describe. Like for me, like lonely a little bit, knowing that there's other siblings out there but you don't have a relationship with them. And I definitely believe that God always, even though we go through some really hard trials and errors and experiences, but you guys had each other. I mean, I feel like that's what's so inspiring. I mean, you could have easily gone down that path of addiction.
And every day, I still think that that's a possibility for anybody's life, especially with when you have a family of generation of addicts, right?
Right.
It's something that I'm not going to say that, whether I've had certain surgeries, whether it's a C-section or breast implants removal, and it's like, hey, we're going to give you the Vicodin, we're going to give you the Percocet. And, it's like, I've been terrified of taking those medications because I know that, I have an addictive personality. I mean, look what's happened with my family. So I'm terrified of taking those medications. I'm terrified of taking a Xanax with my anxiety because I do suffer from anxiety every single day of my life. And it's a generalized anxiety disorder because since the day I was born, that's all I've ever known, right? Is like the anxious protection, it's like we were victims, these kids trying to protect ourselves. So I think at any possible point in my life, that is something that I'm always thinking about and I'm terrified of. And that's why it wasn't until a few years ago I had my first hangover, because I've been terrified of drinking. And so I feel like I have enough self-control now, and I have clearly, but the stats are out there. When you're a foster child, when you have the traumas that we went through and the abuse and the different types of abuse through 2 sets of parents, like they say, chances are you're going to become an addict. Chances are you're going to become homeless. And so I hope that like my story, inspires many that maybe are going through, whether it could be any sort of addiction or have a similar upbringing than me, and they think, I'm not going to be able to make it. I can't do it. Like, this is against me. Like, we all have a choice. And I think your will and whether it's believing in a higher power, like for me, I know that God has been that person that has pushed me to get through those hard times. And he gives me the desire and the will to say no when something might feel uncomfortable or certain situations. I'm constantly at, whether it's parties and Hollywood, et cetera, and there's drugs all around me. And so, he's given me that that strength to be able to push through, because it could have easily been a yes. And what if I would have liked it? Like, the chances are I can easily become addicted. And so for me, I'm so grateful that, you know, I've chose a different life, and I have a stable relationship, which is another huge thing for me. I've had no stability growing up. And so now that I've been married this year, almost 12 years. I have a beautiful 9-year-old daughter, and I got married very young too. But I think the most beautiful thing between my husband and I is, yes, with any marriage, you're going to have work, but we've always have supported each other. But most importantly, the respect has always been there. And I think, I don't know if I would be in the same place I am today, sitting in front of you today, if it weren't for having a stable relationship at home and a family that I truly is my backbone, because I never had that. And so I just appreciate that so much.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel too, like, you made a good point, is that it's like there's the stigma, right? And the statistics, like you said. And you are blessed to have the mentality of, well, that's not going to be me. Like, I'm terrified of that. It scares you, where others can almost justify too that, well, you know, my whole family are addicts, so I'm an addict too, right? And like, it can go either way, but...
And like, I get it. Like, I do understand, because my own family has suffered from that, right? And I get it. And I ran into a lady in New York City last year, and she was asking for money, and I gave her money. I'm like, take it all, you know. It hurts my soul, and I want to help everyone that comes in my area. And she said, you don't know what I've been through. I was raped, and my parents were drug addicts. And I looked at her and I said, actually, I went through very similar stuff growing up. And her mouth dropped. And she was expecting me to say, like, oh my gosh, and obviously I'm so empathetic to the stories, because I was that child. But and then she's like, really? You were? And I was like, yeah, I was actually a foster child, and I went through X, Y, and Z. And she's like, but look at you now. And I'm like, you can do it too. Like, you just have to push, and it's okay to ask for help. And that's why it's such a blessing for you. And I was thinking about what you said, and how you used to hide, and you don't want your name, you don't want your face associated with your facilities. But I'm like, there's been moments where I'm constantly thinking of you, that I've known people that have struggles, and I'm like, there's not enough of places that are willing, that are like, literally every psychologist is full, every therapist is full, you have to be on a huge waiting list. Like, there's still not enough. And there's so many people that are suffering, I think even more now, because of what is happening in our world, and all the pain, that like, there isn't enough of you. And I'm so grateful for this platform, for you doing the work that you're doing, because I do feel like it's God's work. And so I want you to know that as well.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, and I'm thankful now. I mean, the world we live in is such a scary place now. And I feel like these platforms are necessary, because social media started, and, you know, just started hitting the fan with these poor kids. And there's so much out there, and just feeling alone. You know, if someone's posting that they're at the movies and they're leaving somebody out, like before, when we were in school, we didn't see that. We didn't even know if they went to the movie theaters without inviting us.
Exactly.
Now they see that, and they're feeling left out. And now the anxiety and depression is sinking in more. Trying drugs. I mean, I didn't know anything about drugs when I was younger, because my upbringing, my mom, that I didn't grow up in a household like that, fortunately. However, I didn't know anything about it. So when I was introduced to me, I knew that they were bad, but I didn't know the extent of it. Where these platforms now, I feel we're able to put out a message to other people and share what we've gone through, to inspire others, that no matter what they're going through, no matter what upbringing they've had, like, I'm sure so many people look at your story and think, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
All the time. All the time. And I think that, you know, really, I look at myself every single day, and I'm so grateful to God. I'm so grateful. I feel like I was saved. Like, I literally feel, I know what could have been my life. And I also know that with any decision, it still can be a possibility, because it's known, like, when you come from that, it can always, like, and so I'm very protective of the people in my life, my circle, my business, my family. But, you know, I think that it's such a reality, you know, and I think that there's actually so much more access, like you said, whether it's hearing stuff on social media, but like whether it's Hollywood and parties, et cetera, access to easily take a line of Coke or what stuff like that, right? And it's a real thing.
It is.
And so the great thing is I'm terrified of all of that because I'm traumatized. I have major PTSD.
Right.
PTSD from like, and I'm vulnerable enough to say that I will never forget that what I saw growing up. And so, you know, I think about my life too, where it's like, yes, although, you know, I've obviously have lived and chosen a different life for myself, but I also made a choice and I had this higher power pushing me through and this strength. So like anybody again that's listening, like you can do it whether you're in it or maybe you've tried or you're confused or you have a similar upbringing, like you can make that choice to make a difference, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be vulnerable. And I've learned that. And even for me, I went through 13 years of therapy when I left my foster home. And that was like the best thing I could have done for myself, you know, because it wasn't just, you know, day to day, like, you know, stay away from drugs or stay away from alcohol. It was just like self-healing that I needed to do in order to become where I'm at in my life. And so I look at my career now where I'm like, oh my goodness, like I feel like that life was like a whole different lifetime ago because now with my business, obviously I am the CEO and founder of Dolce Glow by Isabel Alysa, which is a spray tanning and self-tanning line. And what led me to that was getting my first spray tan right after I left my foster home.
How old were you?
I was probably like 19 years old. And I remember I like could not afford it, but it's like with beauty, us women will do whatever we can, whether it's like the nails, we don't care. We're going to figure out how to get the nails done, the hair done, the makeup we wanted.
And I'm sure that spray tan was definitely not what spray tans look like now.
Exactly. And it was so funny because it was not the way it looked, you know, how spray tans have evolved to what they are now.
Right.
But it was so funny that I'll never forget the way the spray tan and the self tanner made me feel. Like immediately picked me out of this like dark place. It gave me this confidence booster. I'm tiny, but I have tons of cellulite. I couldn't see my cellulite the next day. And I remember this thought thinking, oh my gosh, like this girl just came to my house and charged me all this money. And what if I can make people look and feel good and give them this confidence and also, you know, make money at the same time? And it wasn't for a few years later till after my husband and I got married and I was working my 9-to-5 job to where I'm like, I'm going to start doing this as a side business. And I would go work my full-time job, go home, be a mom, be a wife, put my daughter to bed, or my husband would drive me till 3 or 4 in the morning when he had to be at work at 5:30 in the morning with my daughter in the back seat. We only had one car at that time, so he would drop me off or pick me up and we would share the car while I would do the spray tans. And like my first year spray tanning is a side hustle. I made over $100,000. This was like almost 10 years ago. Like that's a lot of, I mean, come on, think of years ago. That's a lot of money now.
Yeah.
And so
for a side gig and spray tan,
like I'm like literally this is wild. And so and then I'm like, in order for me to be different, because I knew I wanted to like work with the best and be the best and have the best product, I needed to create a product. And so that's what ultimately led me to launching Dolce Glow by Isabel Alysa and having my own self tanners now. And through the midst of all that, little did I know that it would take one call, one opportunity. And that sacrifice, when everybody else is sleeping or at the nightclub, 21, 22 years old, I'm out spray tanning till 3, 4 in the morning and making a couple $100 extra bucks that end up being $100,000 that year.
Right.
And so again, the sacrifice, right, that I've also had to do in my life because I didn't have mom or dad to write me a check when I didn't have money to pay my rent.
Right.
Or pay for my car. I had to do it. I had to figure it out. And so, little did I know I would become one of the biggest celebrity spray tan artists in the world. You know, I work with some of the most influential people in the world, you know, from Miley Cyrus, who actually just last year invested in our company as our friends and family round because it started to grow even bigger than what I could have ever even imagined. And again, it's okay to ask for help. When stuff's growing, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But never did I think that Miley Cyrus would become an investor in my company. Or I would work with, you know, the amazing Kardashian family who have had a huge part of my success in my career, and Selena Gomez, and like the list goes on. And just goes to show, and now have products available and, you know, all Ultas and Nordstrom's on Revolve and Macy's and QVC, that I'm like, my story, God was preparing me. Like he took me through these wild, crazy, traumatic times, and I've never been angry at him.
Yeah.
Gives
me chills.
I also think that me not being angry, because they say when you're angry and you hold grudges, that becomes poison.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And believe it or not, I've never been angry at God. I've never been angry at my adopted parents. I've never been angry at my biological parents. And my husband's always like, you're so nice and you're so nice. And this person screwed you over. And I'm like, I'll smile at them the next day. I'm like, I'll give them an opportunity. You know, it's okay. I'll give them a second chance. But I just feel like God just made me so different. And so, you know, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. And I'm growing every single day, and it's getting harder and harder as my business continues to grow.
Right.
But I'm like, God, you brought me this far. And I know whether it's through my spray tans, I'm going in with some of my clients, and I tan everyone. Obviously, have tons of amazing celebrity clients, but I've gone in and my clients are bawling their eyes out, and they're like, I just called you because I knew a spray tan would make me feel better. And I'm like, can I just pray with you? Like, if you're offended, don't worry, but I'll pray for you. And they're like, and I'm like, we're praying in my spray tan tent. Like, and I'm like, God, I do not know what this person is going through, but I'm just put your hands over her, bring her, you know, close to you. And so I feel like I'm doing God's work now. And I'm like, it's more than just a spray tan that I'm doing, you know, or more than just a self tan. I'm changing people's lives.
Well, and it's crazy to see that full circle come around of like you getting your very first spray tan, and you knew what it did for you. You knew how it made you feel, and that was going to make so many other women across the globe feel that way. And it's so true.
And that's why I started doing my spray tan classes. So now I teach people from across the world through my daily spray tan classes. I actually do them monthly, but now I'm able to also help other women and give them a financial freedom with little, almost, it's not a lot of money to start up a spray tan business. And the people that are coming to me, and they're like, I didn't know how I was going to be able to afford this, right? Like, I'm struggling every month, or I can barely afford groceries. And I'm like, they're like, can you do a payment plan with me? I'm like, absolutely. Like, I've been there. I've been there. I'm never going to say no to someone that is trying to improve their life or get that financial freedom. And so now I'm able to now pay it forward. And people are like, why do you want everyone to know your technique or know what solution? I'm like, listen, there's so much for everyone.
Right.
And only 20% of the population actually has ever tried a spray tan, and 80% of the women population are still interested in trying their first spray tan.
Interesting.
So just to start there.
Yeah.
Room
so there's
for everyone.
There's room for everyone. Well, and honestly, I feel like that is to be a successful not only business owner, but creator, and to have a solid team that works with you, you have to have that mentality, because the ones who grow very quickly, who, you know, maybe everything was just handed to them. I feel I'm the same. I had nothing. I started my company with a credit card with a $5,000 limit.
Exactly.
But I had a purpose.
Charged it all up.
You know, it was my purpose and my passion that has made everything possible and be where I am today. But with that mindset that there's enough, like, people call me and they're like, how do I do this? How do I start a company? I'm like, this is how you do it. I have no problem sharing that, because if somebody else has the same goal and drive that I do to help other people, heal, to get better, to overcome whatever they're struggling with, I want them to know the formula that worked for me, because there needs to be more people out there that are able to provide, you know, those services. And same for you. I mean, you've created an amazing platform to be able to help other women. I know that Tasia did your class, and she started Shaded, and they're here in Monterey. And, you know, being a new mom, I know for her, I'm like speaking for her, but you know, new mom, and it's hard. It's so hard being a new mom. And she was working closely with me, and she came to me and she just had this look on her face, and I'm like, I'm going to stop you there. I don't even need to hear it. I love you. I respect you. Do what you need to do. Like, be a mom.
Absolutely.
You don't have to try to juggle everything. No. At that moment, you have to focus on this. And then,
that's a success. I think also people have this perception of success that they have to have the big house, the big car, the fancy car, all this money in the bank. Success is finding your own happiness.
Absolutely.
And for me, and I think about that all the time. And I say this when I'm talking to, different people that want to be a part of our business, and they're like, what is your ultimate goal? And although I set goals, I'm like, listen, whatever God has planned for my life and my business, no man can stop, and that's going to be it. But I'm winning already because I'm happy, and like everything else in my life is a bonus. As long as I can freaking go to Costco, and that's such a blessing for me, and like fill up my fridge and not have to like worry about groceries for the week. And I know so many people worry about that, and so I've been there. And there's days where like I forget that I'm in such a beautiful place now. But that's why through my company too, where we're growing every day. And so we're we're not like the big boys, but we're going to be there. And I know that that's what God has planned for me. But when I say it's more than just a spray tan, last year, what we're able to do, it's like we had all this old packaging from our spray tan self-tanners that we were not selling anymore because we had revamped all of our packaging. But there was a local women's shelter. And I'm like, I know how a spray tan made me feel, or a self-tan. Like, what if we donate all these self-tanners to that women's shelter? And so we took them lunch. We donated, a small check. There was nothing huge. And we donated all these self-tanners. Or it's like every Christmas we donate, we grant all the foster kids, a local foster agency that I actually came out of, all of their wishes for Christmas for local foster, agencies. So for me, it's like, whether it's something small or big, like if I'm able to just make a difference in people's lives, that's where I'm literally like, it's more than just a spray tan. I change people's life through my business, but like never forget also where I came from and stay grounded. I think that's what we see with a lot of people in success now is like, and I hear it all the time. I had someone fly in yesterday from Australia. She booked a spray tan with me. Not for a spray tan, because she wanted to meet me and give me her product, and she knew that that was probably the only way to get me the product personally versus it getting lost in like the tons of PR packages. And she was like almost in tears, and I'm like, the fact that you flew and left your 6-year-old daughter to come and like meet me, and like you're so smart. You're like, if I book a spray tan, I'm gonna probably see Isabel. And I'm like, anything I can do to help her, but I just think, going back to that, I never want to forget, and I never will forget where I came from. So whether it's through my business or as I grow, I want to help the world, and I want to, help the foster kids, and I want to help the local women's shelters. So I think, I'm just doing God's work through, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's hard. And it's, I'm the same way with the gratitude. It's crazy. It's probably a little bit annoying how much I sit there and say, I'm so thankful for my fridge. Like, I'll just stare at it. And I'm like, my kids have snacks when they come home, whatever it is that they want, and they have.
To be able to give a life to like my daughter that I didn't have, and half the time I'm like, little girl, I'm going to drive you down and I'm going to show you all those tents in downtown LA because listen, mommy and daddy were, there was points again where, thank gosh, the lady opened up her room and I could rent a room in a stranger's house, but there's chances that I very much could have been in a tent. And so now giving her the life that I didn't have, but always reminding her that, and to be humble, and everything is just, this is all bonus. And, whatever it is that you want in your life, you have to, like, everyone's success is different. And I don't think it's the stuff that you can't take with you. I think it comes within. I think it's happiness and peace. It doesn't matter where you live. It really is just what makes you happy. And I think it doesn't have to be a business like mine or a business like yours. It could just be a healthy relationship at home with your kids, or being able to fill up your fridge, or whatever that is. Like, I think there's just so many different definitions of success. And I think society has forgotten about that because social media makes us feel like it's never enough, or we're not doing bigger and better things.
Exactly. It's like it's the comparison, and always comparing of like, well, I'm not here yet. And it's like, well, you have to stop and think where you are today and where you were, no matter what that is, whether you're in school, whether you are just starting your career, like, you have to look back, okay, look where I am today and I started. And maybe you're not where you want to be, but that's your motivation to keep pushing, to keep going. And it's hard because I feel like, everybody looks and sees like, wow, this is amazing and doing this, but even now with your success and your goals, like you're still going, there's still so many sacrifices that you're making, you know,
every single day.
And even if you're balancing it as best you can,
it's so hard.
It's so hard. I mean,
look
it's
at how long we've been trying to make this happen too. And it's like, it's not that, it's just, I'm being pulled in so many different directions. And now more than ever, I'm busier than ever, and it's such a blessing. But at the same time, I was telling my husband, like, I kind of want to continue to, you know, just go back to a good balance, because that's so important, right? And so, and you're only one person, and I'm telling myself, like, I'm going to give myself grace and one day at a time, because, you know, it's like a little bit here, a little bit there, and then it's like I'm running myself in the ground.
And it's like a vacation. Like they say, you need a vacation from vacation. Like it's true, because it's, people will be like, oh, wow, how nice. You went here for work, and you're traveling, and you got to
I hear that all the time.
Be in snow for work, and, you know, must be nice. And oh my gosh, I can't with the must be nice. And I'm like, I don't get to come home and take a break
and be with my daughter and put her down every night.
You know, I'm sacrificing that. I'm having her cry, FaceTiming me. I miss you, mommy. I miss you. And luckily my husband
is so real. And same thing with my husband. Like your husband, my husband. Like,
and then I feel bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, hug her for me, please. You know, I'll be home tomorrow, and let me change my flight to earlier so I can get home. And it's like, then you have to come home, and then it's sports, and it's laundry, and it's, you know, cleaning up the house and going grocery shopping. And it's all the things. I'm like, if you catch me in my house, like a total hermit crab couch potato, I need to do that every once in a while.
Absolutely. And I'm more and more, I find myself where I'm like, I just want to do nothing. And it's okay to just have those days. And, you know, I think people always ask me, Isabel, how do you think you became so successful? And like, how did, you know, and I'm like, one thing I will be super just like transparent and open is you do have to work hard. And there is a part of work that in life, you do have to sacrifice. And you do, like, there's been times where I've been on family vacations with my family in, you know, Mexico. And I get a call from a client I've been dying to work with. And I leave my vacation and go and, you know, fly. And no one, not even the client would ever knew that I was in Mexico 6 hours before that. And I completely changed all of my plans. But I've made those type of sacrifices, and I still do. But now it's shifting a little bit to where it's like my business is shifting, my life is shifting. But I do think when you're building anything, you got to put in that hard work, but take breaks, exercise, drink water, like all of that is so important.
Self-care, making sure you're taking care of yourself.
Very likely that's where the drugs can come into play, right? Because you're needing something to feel better. You're needing something to sleep. You're needing, so, you know, even for me where I'm like, oh, it's so quick to take an Ambien. No, you know, I'm going to take a Lemmy. By the way, I love those Lemmy vitamins from Kourtney Kardashian. They're so good. And I haven't had anything that actually works as good as that. So, you know, it's like trying the natural stuff because I'm terrified of becoming addicted to Ambien. So it's like things like that. And so it's like, and those are the moments where I have to stop myself and say, no, you don't need an Ambien. Take a natural, try meditating, taking a hot bath. I love heat warmers on my bed. They put me to sleep like a baby. But because, again, I know where that could lead, because it just becomes a norm. And I think that's what we see a lot in just people that own businesses or are very successful. You hear about these stories. And it's not just the people that came from upbringings. It's very successful people that have addiction problems that, you know, are, you know, will never even say like, I'm an alcoholic or I've been, you know, addicted to this and that I can't stop. And, you know, that's why they have these like lavish, you know, in Malibu, these fancy, you know, places I hear about. And it's like, you know, it's like, I guess addiction has no, what is it?
No
it doesn't discriminate.
Not at all.
Not at all types of success.
Well, and a lot of people too that come into a successful career or Hollywood, for example, right, is now they have a manager and they don't know any different. It's like exciting. It's new. Okay, this is a new venture for me. And you have your manager saying, okay, here's this. You take this to go to sleep at night because you're only, you know, we're going to be on the road, and then take this as soon as you wake up as a pick me up, or take this to keep going during the day, and then repeat the cycle.
Oh, and then you always think it'll never be me. I'll never become addicted. I'll never do this. And you will. That's a problem because
it's being aware.
It's just being aware of it. And you know, just always, and I just think that's why the mental health piece of it is so important.
It's huge. I mean, we have to take care of our mental health before anything. I mean, our brain is our largest organ, you know, and it's so powerful. So if we're nurturing and taking care of our brain, that's going to be able to take care of the rest of our body. And especially with busy lives like we have and traveling and trying to balance it all, it's like remembering to just breathe and take in, you know, the gratitude as well as the self-care, whatever that looks like. If that's sleeping
and it's okay
in,
to just like, again, like you said, take a day off. And for me, sometimes I'm so tired and I love napping, and I'll feel myself, my moods start to change when I'm exhausted and everything is just going wrong. And I'm a huge believer of like what you put out in the universe comes back 100%, whether you're speaking, if you're negative because you're exhausted and you're just like, you know, whether it's like your car broke down and you're like, I'm so pissed off. I'm like, well, the car broke down, got to get it fixed. So I'm a huge believer in like that energy and what you're putting out in the universe. And if I'm starting to feel like a little bit of that negativity because I'm tired, I'm like, it's time for a nap. And I'm just like, I'm going to block my schedule, or it's okay if I have to cancel sometimes. It's just, and I think for a long time, I said yes to everything. But I was saying no to myself.
100%. And that I'm still learning. That I just had a discussion on that the other day, like learning how to say no. I'm such a people pleaser. People have always come before me, you know? I mean, I feel like doing God's work is like I was saved from my addiction and put on this planet to be there for other people. Like I'm a firm believer in that. But I have to remember that I have to take care of myself, because sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to go there and I really don't want to do this, but put a smile on my face and do it anyways, where I'm getting so much better. Just like, you know what, I'm so sorry I can't make it. Or, you know, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that event. Or you guys go. The thing is, the events continue and I have an amazing team to handle them. Why do I feel the need to always have to be there?
And I don't. And that's what I've learned, I think, this year more than ever, where I'm like, I don't need to be on that call. I have a great team. And by the way, my Dolce Glow team, oh my gosh, God has sent me the most incredible team. He sent me the most amazing business. Like my Dolce Glow team are my ride or dies. They're an extension of my family. And I would not be where I'm at today without an amazing team behind me. But I'm like, my team can handle it. I trust my team enough. You know, obviously if there's any additional questions that you can answer, we can always circle back on that, because I was saying yes to everybody and no to myself. And no to myself meant, you know, and I'm still working on that every day. I'm not perfect, and there's still a lot of things that I should be saying no to, but it's a part of sacrificing, and I do know that. So I'm still trying to find that fine line. But I find myself saying more yes to myself, whereas like, yes, it's okay to get that massage. Yes, it's okay to take a nap. Yes, it's okay to cancel plans. Yes, it's okay. You know, like my daughter last week, I had to cancel, you know, a QVC airing because my daughter needed me to be home and I flew back. And so it's things like that, to where I'm like, yes to myself first. And I'm not perfect, but I'm learning that more and more every single day.
And that's hard. Do you ever, through your process of your career, did you ever feel, I mean, you're so positive and you're so move forward. Did you ever have any doubt in yourself or wanting to give up?
All the time. All the time. I think anybody who tells you that they've never felt like giving up is lying to you. I probably just last week, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is getting so big. I'm so grateful. I'm so gracious. But there's days where I feel like, am I really worthy? And that's what I talk about. Am I worthy of this? Like, can I build this business that everybody's saying that I'm going to be able to have one day? Am I worthy of it? Because again, there's days where I feel like I'm not worthy of my success. I'm not worthy of my clients. I'm not worthy of this business. But I'm like, damn right you're worthy. Just because I was a foster child and I went through this doesn't mean that that's going to define my success or my future. If anything, it's made me stronger.
100%.
But I'd be lying to you if I said I'm human. And those are the days where I'm like, I need a reset. I need a nap. I need a good night's sleep. And guess what? I feel better the next day. I'm like, well, God's brought me this far. I'm not giving up now. But it's all the time where I'm like, do I want to, you know, I think anybody would be lying to you if they said they didn't feel like they had those moments of quitting or giving up. I'm constantly, and I have people coming to me now and they're like, Isabel, I'm feeling discouraged. I don't have enough clients. I don't know how I'm going to make it. And I'm like, girl, I've been there. And sometimes just hearing that makes you feel like you're not alone. And just recently I met Jamie. She's actually the founder of Beauty Bio, which is an amazing beauty brand. Jamie, I went on this influencer trip. I was like, oh, great. Now I guess I'm an influencer. Okay, let's do this. But I want to be a great influencer, right? Yeah. And so Beauty Bio invited me on this brand trip. And they have the most amazing products, by the way. And they just launched these like SPF, I think it's like 45 blend drops, which is actually so cool because it's actually like the golden undertone. So I'm a huge, the tan for me is everything. Yeah. But I met this lady, Jamie, and I was like, God wanted me to be there because I don't know how it happened, but like I was sitting with her and Juliana Rancic, and we're talking about my life. And she's like, it's her event. And she's talking about how Dolce Glow is the best spray tan and self tanner she's ever tried. And I'm like, this is like your party. Like, I'm not trying to rain it, but thank you so much. And then at the end, I had some moments with her. She pulled me aside and start spilling the tea about my life and my business. And it's just one thing led to another. And by the end of this weekend, like she knew everything about my life, my business. And I'm like, Jamie, like, I don't know how I'm going to like do this. Like, it's just becoming growing and I don't know who to go to. And we're starting our next, season of funding and all that stuff. Like, who do I trust?
Right.
What do I sign? Who do I ask questions to? And Jamie's like, you are not alone. I got you. And I'm going to be there for you. And she called me yesterday on the phone and we're talking about it. And I'm asking her the most personal questions about what is okay, how much equity is okay, and where do I sign, and what's fair, and what's this. No one is willing to give that information. But this angel of Jamie, who's like literally saying, Isabel, as a friend, I want nothing from you. I am going to help you. And this is what I'm going to do. And this is who I'm going to call. And I'm there for you. And I was like, God sent me this angel that I don't even know how. I just felt like I just knew she was an angel sent to me. And so, I just think about God just knew what I needed because just last week I was like, can I do this? Will it be okay? Am I going to be okay? And it's all positive stuff. It's growth. My business is growing and we're going
into scary too,
it's so scary. But I'm like, now it's like I do just having someone that I could call and for her to be like, I've been there. Like, you're not alone. I'm like, I can breathe now.
Breath of fresh air. Yeah. Being able to have that. What do you hold on to when times get tough? Is it prayer? Do you have a quote? What is it that you hold on to?
I just think it's prayer and it's meditation and my family. Like there's days where I always say my husband gives me such tough love in the sense where like, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I'm feeling so stressed. Like, what am I going to do? And he like really will whip me up in shape and be like, you're going to quit now? Like, you've come this far. Like, we'll figure it out, And so it's a lot of pep talks for my family. It's prayer. It's me, having a good night's sleep, having a reset, having a day off. And I always find myself to feel better after that. So I'm like, I tell my husband, can you be a little nicer in the way you say it? And he's like, I'm telling you, because you've come this far. And so you need people in your life to kind of be like, hey, like we're here for you. Like you're not by yourself.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, your billboard.
Oh my gosh. How wild is that?
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, seeing your daughter it's just
those are the moments for me that like she didn't know I didn't even know we're going there. My husband's driving and he goes, look up, and she goes, that's my mommy, guys, that's my mommy. And I was like, oh my gosh, she is so proud, and nothing makes me more happier than to see the happiness on her face and how proud she is of me. And I'm like, I have this like little beautiful 9-year-old daughter, which I can't believe she's 9. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm getting older, but through my kids, I'm like, I must be getting a little older. But like seeing that smile and how proud she is of mom and how I can give her the life that I did not have.
Yes.
And I can fill her fridge. I can fill her snack box with all the snacks in the world and not have to, and I know so many people are struggling. That's why like I want to be able to also, as my business continues to grow, I want to do a portion of our proceeds to, homeless agencies and foster agencies.
Yes.
So we're getting there. So that's a big plan. I want to have a brand with a purpose.
Yes.
But for my daughter now, at least I can fill her lunch pail. And at least I feel like I'm making it by filling her lunch pail and her not having to worry about where her next meal is going to come from.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Isabel, thank you so much for coming on. And you're just such an inspiration. And you have so many people cheering you on in the background.
And I'm so grateful. So grateful. I mean, people like you, just a day-to-day person that texts me and they're like, Isabel, your products made me feel so better. Or like, Isabel, it's the best self-tan I've ever tried. It made me feel better. You know, I've been feeling so depressed. And I'm like, the fact that I can make people feel better through my products. And that's why a good spray tan, a good self-tan, you know, it'll make you feel better.
Yes.
But the fact that whether it's through my products now or having a brand with a purpose now, or coming on and meeting people like you and just getting on your platforms and sharing my story, I feel like, you know, God's putting me in the right place at the right time, and he's like moving me through my business. And so thank you.
Yes. And how do people follow your journey and find your products?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Isabel Alysa, ISABELALYSA, or dolceglow.com. If, you know, there's someone listening that wants to take a spray tan class and you might, you know, be barely making it, or, you know, you don't have, you know, always reach out, always find a way to help, or, you know, you want to try a product and a self-tanner. Maybe you've had a terrible experience with another one before. Dolce Glow is very different. And so anything I can do to just serve and help you, just always feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.